Sir has a credit of PhD in English from Banaras Hindu University and a postgraduate diploma in English language teaching from CIFL Hyderabad. He has been National Scholarship Awardee from higher secondary to post-graduation. His research and teaching focuses on the contemporary literature and theory, poetry, fiction, diaspora literature, Indian literature in education. He has delivered Indian literature in English, applied linguistics, English language teaching, communication, and teacher education. He has delivered many keynote and plenary addresses in various national and international seminars and conferences. Moreover, he has conducted several training and testing programs in the area of aviation communication for air traffic controllers and airport officers as a resource person, and also delivered more than 70 distinguished invited lectures, including memorial lectures, motivational lectures, skill-based training lectures at refresher and orientation courses. He has worked as principal investigator of UGC major research project on the poetry of Indian diaspora. Professor Pandey has published 5 books, including 2 co-edited books, and contributed more than 40 articles and papers in various anthologies and journals. He was one of the members of the editorial board of 11-volume Encyclopedia of Hindustan, of which Professor Kapil Kapoor was editor-in-chief. Professor Pandey has attended more than 75 national and international seminars, conferences, workshops. He is on the editorial board of several research journals and currently the editor in the in-house journal Research and Criticism. He has organized an international conference on the future of humanities, challenges and prospects, a national seminar on English studies in India, and the Centenary Alumni Meet, a national seminar on history, myth and orality, cultural and literary traditions in India, a refresher course in English, and memorial lectures in the department under his headship. He has guided 17 PhDs so far and is supervising 8 PhD dissertations at this point of time. His other noteworthy academic and administrative responsibilities include Chief Administrative Warden of City Delegacy BHU, Deputy Coordinator Malviya Center for Ethics and Human Values BHU, Professor in Charge BHU Press and Publication Division, Convener Spoken English course for BHU students, Convener Inter-Faculty Youth Festival Spandan, and co-convener member panel of experts NAC Bengaluru, expert committee member appointed by the UGC for drafting learning outcomes based curriculum framework for UG and PG courses in English in order to achieve quality mandate of the UGC. So sir is with us. We are very lucky to have him amongst us for today's lecture. And I hope our students will be benefited most through his lecture on literature of Indian diaspora, research perspectives and possibilities. I also welcome all my colleagues from our department, Dr. Professor Rahmat Jahan, Dr. Vikas Mohan Sahai, Dr. Sushil Kumar, and Mr. Sanjay Kumar Pushkar. I also welcome all the students who have joined today for this special web lecture. And now I invite Dr. Professor Maya Shankar Pandey for his deliberation. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar and good morning to all of you. Hope you are fine. Especially I welcome the research scholars of the Department of English there. I also welcome the teachers who are present to listen to this lecture. Thank you, ma'am, for saying nice words about me. As my topic is focused on the literature of Indian diaspora, its research possibilities and prospects. And I have designed this lecture for the benefits of the research scholars. My experience has been that so far I have examined more than 20 dissertations on the literature of Indian diaspora. But what prompted me after reading those dissertations was uh, that sometimes students, research scholars lack conceptual clarity, sometimes theoretical formulations. They commit errors in research questions and hypotheses, and they take the literature of Indian diaspora not so seriously as desired. So I thought that this is the area which is full of possibilities. So I thought that why not I should select an area which is very, very useful and is being used by the research scholars these days, and try to see what are the areas, what the gap areas in that in those literature. And that prompted me to speak on the literature of Indian diaspora. One thing is that I initially actually I got a major research project on the literature of Indian diaspora 31 years ago. I think it would be the first major UGC project on diaspora. So whenever I read, whenever I talk about diaspora, then this fascinates me. And every time I find different angles and approach to this. So to my research scholars, just my piece of advice is that this lecture will be, very informative, very critical, futuristic, and research oriented. I'll tell you ABCD of diaspora. Uh, and generally you think that this is very easy thing, but that is not. And what are the major, things that you should remember? Especially when you go for selection committee meeting and you say that you are working in the area of Indian diaspora, definitely certain questions will be asked. Very easy questions, but they are very tricky. So let us begin one by one. First thing first, where students generally commit errors. What is diaspora? They say that diaspora is blah 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 this. So diaspora, basically the etymology of diaspora is it is a Greek word. It is not an English word. It came in English dictionary, in English vocabulary uses in the 19th century, 1876. But this term diaspora, which etymology is dia, D-I-A, plus sperein, S-P-E-I-R-E-I-N. To my research scholars, you can note down D-I-A, that is the prefix. Dia means across, through. Sperein, S-P-E-I-R-E-I-N. That means scattering. Scattering from one center to various centers. That was the Greek word. And in the 3rd century BC, about 5,000 mostly to 2,500 years ago, the Greek scholars, 70 Greek scholars translated the old Jewish Testament into Greek, because English was not that language at that time. So these, in the Septuagint, you will find this word of diaspora, Greek word, and this is the very bold word. Then in the 18th century, 19th century, in 19th century, it comes into English. And in the 20th century, around 1850 or 1950 onwards, it got currency in uses, especially with migration, with immigration, with transportation, when Indians started moving to different parts of the world, and then it got currency. So what I'm saying is that diaspora is an old word, but is now used in different connotations. Initially, as a literary concept, as a literal concept, as a post-colonial concept, as contemporary uses. Very briefly, As I said, the literal meaning of diaspora is dispersal, movement. But what kind of movement? Movement means forced movement. The forced movement of the Jewish people from Jerusalem, from Israel, from Palestine to different worlds, to Babylonian exile. So this kind of migration was not voluntary. It was forced. They were dislocated. So the hallmark of this diaspora is the Jewish diaspora, where scattering is involved, displacement is involved, but that is the forced, not like the modern diaspora. So the word diaspora, in the this literal concept, but it has, I use this term diaspora in two ways. One is the literal and another is metaphorical. Literal means movement, migration, scattering. But the most important thing is the metaphorical meaning of diaspora. Metaphorical meaning of diaspora refers to the experience of diaspora, the trauma of diaspora, the dislocation of diaspora. There are various kinds of movement. In the terms of dislocation, if you ask me what is the hallmark of diasporic movement, I'll say dislocation. Because diaspora resides in three ways. One is it constitutes three things: location, dislocation, and relocation. So the most important thing is the dislocation. And when the relocation takes place, relocation may take place in various ways. I'll come to this. Because, diaspora may also cease. Diaspora may die after some time. Remember, in India, Hoon came, Sakas came, so many, tribes, people came to India. And finally, what happened? They assimilated into Indian soil. And now there is no entity. So that way, initially it was diaspora kind of movement. But they came for conquest, other things, that's a different thing. But that is not in diaspora. Similarly, Indians also went to different parts of the world. In Fiji, in Sumatra, Borneo, Java, the South Indian, conquerors went to other parts of the world, in the 5th century, 6th century AD. But they are not in diaspora. Why? Because they have assimilated. They have relocated themselves there. So don't say that all forms of movement is diasporic movement. No, not at all. Any movement that does not contain dislocation and the experiences and the metaphorical expression of this dislocation, that cannot be equated as diaspora. In terms of, another question is that sometimes you find my research scholars that diaspora is written with capital D and sometimes written with this small d. What is the difference? Capital D is used for the Jewish diaspora, for Jewish experiences, because in any history there is no match, there is no comparison of the trauma and shock of the Jewish experience of movement, betrayal, shock. So, but when we write with a small d, so this is the post-colonial, coinage of diaspora. In that kind of diaspora, it involves movement, it involves migration, and it involves, trauma and shock, but not comparable with the Jewish. So that's why I said the Jewish is the hallmark for this. But you cannot compare all kinds of Jewish experiences with the modern diaspora. Not at all. Don't do this kind of error. So this is the, in the post-colonial age, the meaning of diaspora is used in two ways. One is diasporic literature refers to the literature of the margins, literature of the outsider, literature of the borders. And secondly, in the post-colonial usage of diaspora, these writers, this literature also, dismantles the hegemonic structure of the colonial masters. So they try to decolonize the English literature. That is the post-colonial usage of diaspora. But the traditional meaning is the Jewish one. The traditional meaning is Jewish. Post-colonial meaning is the literature of the margin, but giving answer, questioning to the hegemonic structure of the British colonial masters or any colonial masters as such. In the contemporary uses, in the current time, diaspora has become an umbrella term. Umbrella term means diaspora is used for any kind of migration, for migrants, for immigrants, for exile, for transnational communities. And in all these senses, we use the term diaspora with a small d. So a lot of changes has come in the configurations of diaspora. The initial configuration, initial characteristics of diasporic community, diaspora movement was different. And now new areas, new experiences have been added to this. So one should not be very nostalgic about the Jewish diaspora alone, because the world is changing very fast. So now I come to the Indian diaspora, how Indian diaspora was formed. As I said in the very beginning that in terms of movement of Indians move to different parts of the world. But that is not diaspora, that is settled one. But the formation of Indian diaspora in the real sense of the term began in the 19th century, during the colonization of India was complete. What happened? They were known as the diaspora of Girmit diaspora, Indian indentured diaspora. Indian indentured diaspora, I mean that the Britishers, the British colonial masters took Indians to different sites of the world map, especially on the sugar plantations and the banana plantations of Guyana, Fiji, Mauritius, South Africa. And these migrants, these laborers were taken to different islands under an agreement. And that agreement was known as Girmitia, which we call. And although it was a kind of contract, but it was, it was very unlucky for Indians. When Indians reached Fiji, Guyana, Suriname, Caribbeans, and South Africa, and Mauritius, and other parts of the world, then they realized that, oh my God, what is happening here? In one of the interviews, from the archive, I read that some of the Girmitias told, the journalist who went from India to Fiji and Mauritius, they took interviews of those uneducated people. So with the help of, some people. And look at the knowledge of those Girmitia, those, those laborers who went to these islands. Were taken, it was not forced, I say, but it was designed a kind of, forced movement. Some of the Girmitias told, they asked, one question was asked, how do you know how far is Fiji from India? The answer was that they thought that Fiji should be around, 50 kilometers from Bay of Bengal, or maybe, very near to this. Fiji is around, 12,000 or 14,000 kilometers from India. Look at their, their sense of geography. How far is this? So many days took place. So that if you read the experiences of the Indian diasporic writers, you cannot compare the experiences of Indian indentured diaspora with the modern, Indian diaspora. So don't do that. Don't mix them. Don't make such kind of errors, that those configurations of the Girmitia consciousness, the Girmit ideology is different from the modern Indian diasporic ideology. Don't mix it. I find many more research scholars talk in that sense. Say the kind of when you say that nostalgia, fine, nostalgia is everywhere, but nostalgia, the nature of nostalgia is different. You should read, Svetlana and other, critics when they talk about what is nostalgia, what are the types of nostalgia. So the nostalgia for the Jewish people, for their homeland, for their motherland was different. Configurations were different. But, the Girmitia's experiences of diaspora with in terms of Girmitia ideology, is nostalgia is different. But the modern, the contemporary nostalgia of the Indians, who can be called as corporate diaspora. They in the Western world, America and Europe, earning money, and they belong to the corporate sector. If you talk about their nostalgia, can you compare the nostalgia of this corporate diaspora with the Girmitia diaspora or with the Jewish diaspora? Don't do this. And in theoretical framework, you identify major critics who talk about the Girmit ideology, who talk about the Jewish experiences, and who talk about the transnational diasporic framework. So for research scholars, I tell you, be very careful. Don't mix up all these things. Transnational diaspora has different dynamics, different characteristics. So before I go to the major writers in all these terms, let me tell you that what are the major configurations, major diasporic characteristics, major characteristics of the diasporic communities, because the writers write about the experiences of the diasporic communities. So what are these? If you talk about the Jewish diaspora, then Safran, William Safran is one of the major critics, I tell you. Read, his article. He talks about 5-6 major characteristics of diaspora. And generally the problem with this categorization was, to my mind, was it suits to the Jewish experiences, not to all types of diaspora. And our students, committed into that. And they fit every kind of diasporic, Indian diasporic experiences in the light of Safran's definition of diasporic communities and diasporic experiences. So what the Safran says that diaspora has certain characteristics, like very briefly, I tell you, the first one is the communities, the movement of the communities must be forced, number one, and from one center to various peripheries. This is number one. So forced movement, forced migration, and from one center to different center. The second characteristic was the collective memory, collective vision. Collective vision, they carry collective memory and collective vision of the homeland. Fine, this can be applicable because collective memory and collective vision you can carry. Maybe India in the modern times or in the past in the Girmitia world. Fine. So this is acceptable. But forced, you say, that is question mark. All kinds of movement of Indian diasporic movement is not forced. Leave Girmitia, but the modern context, because that was of their own volition, your choice. Nobody imposed on you that you go to the outer world and say that you are in diaspora. You are earning money. You are happy there. You denounce your motherland, and then you say that you are in diaspora. Fine, transnational career. Yes, you can say, because the writers are writing, and this time we write diaspora with a small d, not with the diasporic experiences. So I said forced dispersal to 1 to 2, 3 or many peripheries. The collective vision and memory of the homeland. Another major characteristic is the alienation, suffering. You are alienated. Fourth important characteristic was the restoration of the motherland. And another thing is that whenever time comes, then time is suitable, then they should return to their homeland for the welfare, for the bondage, for the liberation of that. So that was the main, and this is suitable for the diasporic communities, the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora. And I tell you here, research scholars, I tell you that one thing that you might ask me that homelands create diaspora. Do diasporas create homeland? Ulta dekhiye. Because India, created so many, diaspora, Fijian, Indo-Fijian diaspora, Indo-Caribbean diaspora, Indo-Suriname diaspora, Indo-Mauritian diaspora. Fine. So Indian migrated to different world. So this is the creation of diaspora. But the reverse, you go to the reverse. Can diaspora create homeland? Yes. Jewish Israel. Israel was created because of the efforts of those diasporic communities. who were exiled, who were forced to move 2,500 years, more than that, years ago, from that's been to from Babylonian conquest to so other things, so many things. And millions of Jews were killed, millions of Jews were banished. That experience, that betrayal, it is unimaginative in any world literature as such. So don't compare with this, but that was the motive. So the reverse, I tell you that diasporas can create homeland, and there is one example for this. But these days, don't compare that in the contemporary usage, in the contemporary diasporic context. This is possible. Now I'm coming to, apart from Indian diaspora, one is the Girmitia diaspora, and the second is the modern and postmodern diaspora. Around 1950 onwards, most of the intellectuals, scholars, writers, scientists, they migrated to Europe and to America and to Australia and to Canada in order to test their talents. They settled there. They resided there. They lived there. They were not sojourners. Now they are the settlers there. So that is the modernist phase. And if I'll just mention some of the writers of the modernist phase and their experiences and their configurations of diaspora. But in the 21st century, after globalization, 1991, when the globalization comes, and then you find a new kind of migration started. That I say the corporate diaspora, or petrol diesel diaspora, especially in the Arab countries and in many more countries. So migration becomes so easy. So in this context, which I say transnational diaspora, and where you get the remittance, your family members are sending you money, they are happy there, you are happy here, and you can reach America, say, about in 16 hours. So where is the nostalgia, that kind of nostalgia, and where is alienation, where is suffering, which are considered to be the hallmark of diaspora? Dislocation. Is there dislocation in the real sense of the term? So dislocation of what? Dislocation from one country to another country, dislocation from one culture to another culture, dislocation from one language to another language, dislocation from one religion to another religion. If you just compare this kinds of nature of dislocation in the diasporic writers, then you can fix that what is this. And even I tell you that the Girmitia writers, the writers of Girmit origin, now their children are not Girmitians. Now they are like postmodernist diasporic writers. So don't get confusion that when Satyendra Nandan was a Girmitian, Indo-Fijian, Satyendra Nandan, David Davidin, Sesh Narayan Prasad, there's V.S. Naipaul. So V.S. Naipaul's imaginary diasporic word is different from V.S. Naipaul's father. Indo-Fijian Satyendra Nandan sensibility is different from his grandparents. If you read Naipaul's father's latest Naipaul father's writing and Naipaul's writing, then you will find the difference. And Sudesh Mishra and others, if you say that Nandan's children, Satyendra Nandan's children, and Naipaul's children and other writers, what are they? Are they like the Girmitians? No, not at all. So they have changed their methodology of writing, they have changed their articulation, they have changed their style and framework. So for them, if you say nostalgia is one of the hallmarks of any diaspora, fine, I accept nostalgia. But what kind of nostalgia? Is nostalgia restorative? Restorative means that if nostalgia, if you are tormented by nostalgia, then you may come back. You come back. When you think of your motherland, you come back, do something for this, which Jews did. Restorative, they always thought that let us restore our motherland. If you think of your village, go there and build your house and say, yes, I was thinking of my village, I was thinking my home, my house in that. But this is not possible these days. Their return, you say return is not possible. very few minuscule people, they return. When they go, they settle there, but nostalgia is there. But nostalgia may be like reflexive nostalgia. Reflexive nostalgia means past. Restorative nostalgia believes in past, to live in past, to touch the past, to do something for the root and for the past. But reflexive nostalgia believes that past, it cannot be restored. Past is past. Let us think of the future. Let us think of the present. But when they think of the past, reflexive nostalgia thinks of the past, but not in the restorative term. It may be this nostalgia may bring you happiness. It may bring you regret. It may bring you frustration. But that not like that you come back and just say that yes, now I'm fulfilling my own this restorative nostalgia. Or it may be nostalgia may result into cynical celebration. You are so critical of it. Whenever you think of India, you start criticizing India. Oh, so dirty. Where everywhere there is corruption. People are not good. So this is also one of the features of nostalgia. I say ironic reinscripting of the past. They are very ironical, very satirical. And sometimes if you think and here also our students commit errors, that suppose a writer is criticizing or satirizing the homeland or homeland productions, don't think that he is very satirical, he is cynical, or he's denouncing it, he's rejecting India. Look at Naipaul, V.S. Naipaul, so critical India darkness, about his visits. Um, he talks about India in a very negative term, but in the heart of the heart, there are writers who satirize India, but for its welfare. So if everything is not that you are debunking the past. So there are verbalizations and experiences of those writers as well. So what I say that our research scholars must study the theoretical formulations, understanding of the precise nature of diasporic experiences, and so many things. Now I'm going to take up some major writers and explain how to pick up the precise nature of diasporic experiences in terms of dislocation, in terms of experiences, in terms of nostalgia, in terms of memory, in terms of their response to India, in terms of their identity crisis. Because most of the research in diaspora, the topic you will find diasporic experiences, diasporic concerns, formation of identity, and other style. But what are the points in which we are lacking? That I'll going to solve it with the major mentioning some of the major writers. First one, I'll take one writer from the Girmitia Girmit diaspora, Indian indentured diaspora, very briefly, because I'll talk about 4-5 writers, and just take 15 minutes, give you the major idea, major points of departure from one to another. And suppose if you are working on diaspora, if you are taking Indo-Fijian diaspora, don't think that Indo-Caribbean diaspora is like Indo-Fijian diaspora, or Indo-Mauritian diaspora is like Indo-Fijian. No, not at all. Sensibilities are different, their political condition is different, their mental attitude different. So don't do this kind of the error that just you take one umbrella thing, one part, one thing, and you apply everywhere. Don't do this. Satyendra Nandan I mentioned. You can research scholars can take down Satyendra Nandan. There are other writers like Subramani, Vijay Mishra, Suresh Mishra. So I talk about this Satyendra Nandan, whose grandparents migrated to Fiji under Girmitia condition as indentured. They went to Fiji. They settled there. They could not come back because they didn't have money to come back. And Satyendra Nandan wrote, enormously in poetry, fiction, and semi-autobiographical works. What he talks about is that his ideology conforms to the idea of Gurmit ideology. What is the Gurmit ideology? What do Girmitia think? Because the colonial power took so many people to this item. Nandan says that our Girmit ideology has 3-4 major constituents. One is thwarted millenarian expectations. So we thought that the Girmitia Mazdoor, those laborers thought that they are being sent to paradise. Fiji is a world of paradise. When they go there, because it was put in their mind by the Britishers, by the British agencies, that if you go to Fiji, then you will be free from caste and creed and poverty. You will find very good thing. You will find handsome of amount, and you can come back after 5 years, after 10 years. But when they reached there, that expectation was thwarted, was broken. This is the first thing. In any Girmitia text, there are so many, I tell you. In many Girmitia texts, you will find that how, because they could not write, they were illiterate. Their grandchildren, they wrote, text, and they wrote their memoir. And what they derived from their parents, that account is there. And there lies the nostalgia. There lies, dislocation, this suffering, that how in 8x8 room, there were 8 people. They were called coolies. It is called coolie diaspora. And then, there were mosquitoes. They were beaten by the, people there. They did not get enough, wages for that. So they called it hell, narak. Kahe to narak hai. We thought that it was heaven, it was paradise. Thwarted millenarian expectations. Second criteria, second characteristic of this is the a kind of connection with the motherland, the vision of motherland. They carried the Girmitia when they went there, Fiji, Caribbean islands, or anywhere. They took in their gathari बांधते थे, and gathari में क्या क्या रखा. And this, they thought that yes, for replenishment, and we should carry something. So sattu ले गए होंगे, क्या क्या ले गए होंगे. But they put, Ramcharit Manas, Mahabharat, Hanuman Chalisa, and they carried the collective memory, collective vision of India. What is the collective vision? The collective vision that was there in Mahabharat and Ramcharitmanas, Ramayana, and Quran. So they thought that they will fight with the indigenous people with the Ramcharitmanas, Hanuman Chalisa. कोई परेशानी आती थी तो कहते थे, उनके बताते हैं कि हनुमान चालीसा पढ़ने लगते थे. Look at this vision, because they relate with their mother, this kind of relation. They thought it. And the third thing is definitely nostalgia. Another important point was that hostility with the indigenous. Hostility, badi ladai hui with the indigenous people, because Britishers were very clever. When they left Fiji, then the structure was so that the different communities started fighting among one another. Oh, foot dalo, rajniti karo. Because in the future also, in the neo-colonial framework, colonization was not possible. So the neo-colonial framework, they can rule Fiji. Then what happened? Independence came to Fiji. Satyendra Nandan became education minister there in the parliament. And Fiji experienced different types of coups. One coup followed by another coup, coups, military coups. Bawatra government, another government, started And the time came when about 70,000 people left Fiji for Australia. Look at this exodus. Nandan writes in his memoir that that was the kind of suffering that out of, we thought that now we came from India, it's impossible to reach India. Now they accepted Fiji as their home, and now they have become homeless in their own home. So when you he says that if you capture my imagination of home, where is, even you are taking away my imagination of home. What is home? India? No. Fiji? No. Australia? No. Oh my God! And then the what I say, the whole vision that comes out. Um, Nandan writes that Ram, a character, in a text says that Lord Ram was given 14 years of banvas, banishment for 14 years. But after that, Lord Ram came to Ayodhya. He got his throne, he got his kingdom. But what about us? We are in perpetual diaspora, eternal diaspora. This is this. Because his own homeland, they can't go. Nandan is in Australia. Look at this fear. And most of their children also, they are in US, other parts of the world. But look at this. Well, so Nandan remembers about the rivers, about the trees, about this kind of thing. And if you look at the style of Nandan, you will find flashback, ghost figure. Ghost figure, his father as a ghost, or his grandfather as a ghost comes and talks to kind of in the monologue or dialogue form with the writer, and he says this: "What are you doing, man? What is this? Why are you so frustrated? Gita padho, ye dekho." And this is the reality. कोई कर्म की बात है, ऐसा किया होगा. And the fairs and other things. Oh, dil mere musafir. It's beautiful. Fairs का एक couplet आता है, जबरदस्त उसको he mentions कि लगता है यही है वतन जो हमारा है, वो गम में ही डूबेगा. So मैं मुसाफिर हूँ, गम को लेके चलना है. This is our predicament. But I tell you that if you read Subramani, if you read Vijay Misra is a very very organized critic of this indentured diaspora. You must read My Students, Vijay Mishra. And those who are interested in Indo-Fijian diasporic research things, then you'll find. And you find the kind of stylistic thing, like how Hindi is used there. In English, Hindi, and other things, Nandan uses it so frequently. But what is say, if you ask me in one sentence, the experience of the Girmetia people is from Viswas to Viswasghat. Viswas that now we got independence, we can live here happily, everybody will be all right, but it wasn't. The Viswasghat came, and the coups took place. He left, and now in eternal banvas. And look at their configurations. They say that our relation with the motherland is what? It's a kind of reflexive nostalgia. And if I use his own term, Nandan's term, कहते हैं ना कि मैं भूल रहा हूँ, like continent and this island. Relationship with the motherland is like continent and island. हम लोग island ही रहेंगे. We are part of India, a continent, but island. Can't meet. Marginal. So it says so many things, very deeply. Lines across black waters, and many more texts you find. Now I'm going to other, the modern diaspora, very big, because so many things are to be told And in 1 hour, you just remind me when 5-10 minutes left. Then I'll just talk about this. Now I'm coming to the modern Indian diaspora. I'll take one writer, A.K. Ramanujan. I'm deliberately leaving the fiction because poetry you'll find very less research, and this is the area I'll tell you that you should work on. A.K. Ramanujan you must have read, but A.K. Ramanujan says that in one of his questions that what are the major influences that you underwent in terms of your migration, diaspora. He says that there are two things: my inner form and my outer form. He said that my inner form is India, Dravidian culture, Kannada culture, folklore of India, the inclusive vision of India that shaped me. So I write out of the inner form, but the outer form, outer within inverted comma, and inner within inverted comma. Outer form is English, the language. Outer form is linguistics, anthropology. So this language and linguistics, anthropology, other things, outer form, and I blend this. But if you ask me, what is what? How can we trace that inner form is there or outer form is there? Then the problem is there. It was so fused together, inner form and the outer form. It's very difficult to identify. So this kind of fusion is there. India needs the West. In what way? In very inclusive way. And he says 2-3 things about Ramanujan. I tell you. Because there are many more writers who are in line with Ramanujan's sensibility. One is that memory. Memory is a major tool for the diasporic writers. For research scholars, means you have note kar memory, and in this memory lies the nostalgia, and memory leads to either nostalgia or to satire. A.K. Ramanujan is a wonderful satirist, I think. Wonderful. But his satire is very pointed. It's not that he's debunking India, he's criticizing India. Rather, in his early poetry, he is placing before the world, before Indians, that look, what is wrong is wrong. What is not acceptable should not accept. So he reminds us of our orthodoxy, of Indian hypocrisy, of Indian dirt, of Indian pollution, of Indian beggary. But this doesn't mean that he's denouncing India, he's debunking India, he's abusing India. The way is that he is talking of the not of the geography of India, but its inclusive vision. The vision, Sarva Dharma Samabhava. This is one of them. And friendship, love, no betrayal. So the initially, you see, if you read his poems in Striders and the Relations, the 2 volumes, mostly prescribed in Indian universities, then you find that Ramanujan satirizes hypocrisy. He is the hater of temples, but he is not the hater of the spirit of God. The hypocrisy that is there, the pandas that is there. So this is a kind of reformative, because India is so much present in the diasporic imagination of A.K. Ramanujan that every time he comes back to India, and he relates it with folk tales of India, he relates it with the Dravidian tradition, relates it with the Kannada tradition, relates it with the Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita. but indirectly. And Upanishad, if you read his, third volume and the last volume, Black Hen, then you'll find that, oh, wonderful. See, if you ask me, मेरा personal है कि among the Indian poets, I think A.K. Ramanujan is matchless. Even at the word forum, I can tell you, he's so learned. His metaphors, his imagery, wonderful, super, and the kind of knowledge, the kind of wisdom. So, what about his approach to India? So, India is always there in his mind, but he wants to correct people and India, but not rejecting India. In Upanishad, just I'll very quickly read a few lines for that. um, about the vision. From Upanishad, there is an episode in the Upanishad that there are two birds sitting on the branches of a tree, and one bird is eating and another bird is watching, eating fruit, and another is watching. Look at this disinterestedness, purely Upanishadic image of the bird metaphor. And about the plant and about the tree, that how the whole world is one. What about diaspora? What about alienation? Alienation, according to him, is a means of self-realization. 4 or 5 lines I read. I have heard it among the planters who planted the trees and plants. You can sometimes count every orange on a tree, but never all the trees in a single orange. Purely Upanishad. You can count every orange on a tree. गिन सकते हैं कितने orange हैं, but never all the trees in a single orange. The seed is there, the essence, the pluralistic vision of India. That is the seed, and that should be the way to relate with India. So it's very comprehensive that way. If you read his diasporic sense. And final line, the last poem that is of the fall and fear no fall. The first in Black Hen, the last volume. The first poem is fall, and the last poem is fear no fall. And fear no fall is Arunagiri's fall. Arunagiri was a great saint, and later on he suffered. And suffering gives you, a kind of vision. Then you realize. And fall means Saranagati. Surrender yourself, not surrender in the Christian framework. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyav mokshishyami ma shucha. Pure Gita. Read his striders and relations, and then go to Black Hen. Huge transformation in his growth of poetry. A man hater of temples, orthodoxy, now turning to this. That fall, Arunagiri, fall before whom? Fall before God. He will liberate you. Whatever wrongs you have committed. This is Indian vision. This is the way you can realize. Even if you are in diaspora, your India is always with you. But he is not, just propagating this. He's not renunciating this, because in any diasporic text, if you go for the diasporic discourse, then three things are there. There are some critics, there are some readers who say they always enunciate it. They overstate about things. They overstate about the writers. Itna मैंने thesis पढ़ा, इतनी बड़ी अच्छी बात, क्या नहीं लिख डाला. That is not in the mind of the writer as well. So they overstate, enunciatory. Then denunciatory discourse. They denunciate it, reject it. And renunciatory, renounce it. So these are the extremes. Either you overstate it, or you reject that now it's a good riddance. Now America is very good. We are happy there. Leave India, sab kharab hai. But there are some who accept it, who renounce it, and who criticize it. Look at Raja Rao. Even I think Ramanujan is also like Raja Rao, but in a different way. Raja Rao overtly said that wherever I go, I carry my India with me. This is one of the perspectives. Wherever I go, because your relation with the motherland is, I always carry it, everything, because I'm not going to integrate. I'm not going to assimilate with the host country. Very rigid. There are some writers, there are some communities, you will find some writers. When you categorize them, the typology of the diasporic discourse, you will find this. So one typology is this. And another is another typology, if I go to this, that how do they relate with India? Not only in the Ramanujan's term, but they are the followers of Ramanujan, but they are postmodernist. Now I'm going to take Aga Shahid Ali. Shahid Ali, you can say modernist, postmodernist, wherever you just put it. Like Rushdie's contemporary. Now he's no more, he's passed away. Aga Shahid Ali, born in India, Kashmir, from Kashmir, he went to USA and there he passed away. But he says that, what is your ancestry? Because in diaspora, we think of, we have nostalgia of our parents, of our ancestry, of our motherland, flora, fauna, nature, rivers, all these things. And the writers write about this. But Shahid Ali says that, look, so many things have happened when my parents, when my grandparents crossed in Samarkand to come to India, because they came from Samarkand to India. So I cannot recognize them fully. It's very difficult for me. So I don't write about my parentage, about other things, which most of the Indian diasporic writers write about it. But he gives reason. The reason is that it's impossible for me, it's impossible for so many communities to just remember that 100 years, 200 years, my parents, my grandparents came here and this happened, that happened. He says that in my writing, I use the usable past. The usable past, the past that is usable. This is scholar note kar lo aap. Here is another diasporic writer is saying that his configuration is, I try my best to use the usable. What is the usable past? Not parents, not grandparents, not this family, not the religion, other things. Usable, the usual past is the immediate past. He talks about the pre-partition Indian culture. He talks about Awadh culture because his mother was from Awadh. So he says that for me, the signposts are, what are the signposts for him? What are the guardians? Who are the guardians for Shahid Ali? He said that for me, Ghalib, Mir, Begum Akhtar, Siddheswari Bai, Rasulan. And why? Because, in diaspora, in the United States, when I encounter melancholy state of mind, then what I do? I listen to Mir. I listen to Ghalib. I listen to the silky voice of Begum Akhtar. And that is the form of replenishment for me. I'm energized. This is the way I relate myself with India. So my relationship with, I know that I can't go back, but I have a kind of reflexive nostalgia, but I'm relating with those that can be used with the music. And another important, most important contribution of Shahid Ali is, in the postmodernist sense, is he says that I'm trying to decolonizing English language. I'm trying to decolonize, the Indian diasporic pattern by using ghazal form in English poetry. Ghazal, the Urdu ghazal form. He experimented with this. This is the usable past. So my past, in terms of style, and ghazal is the content of ghazal and the style of ghazal. They are different. And in ghazal, you will find the love and sadness, love and betrayal. And how, through the ghazal mode, he wrote poetry. My research scholars, you must read his ghazals that he experimented with ghazal in English poetry. So this is one of the connections. He said that my connection with India is the ghazal tradition. And he says that monsoon, kajari, thumari. He said that I can imagine about India that my mother used to sing kajari when monsoon comes. So whenever monsoon comes, then I remember of my mother. In what form? Not mother in that sense, but mother's kajari. Blue mother's kajari was the blue god Krishna. This is the way I relate with India, the usable past. And for him, Faiz was the rebel face. He said that Faiz is my ideal. Faiz was an exile. He remained in exile. He was jailed several times. And when he died, he had no address. He translated his ghazals. Padhiyega. A wonderful translation, I tell you. And he says that he writes that when I was translating Faiz, then I realized my own exile. Look at this usable past. Faiz, always a rebel. He was thrown to the jail, his exile. If you ask him, what is your address? In jail. This is, Shahid Ali, his usable past, and have one different framework for this using ghazal and the pre-partition tradition. Begum Akhtar, he uses, wonderfully her songs. But because I don't have much time, so I'll just going a little bit faster. Coming to the third writer, this Meena Alexander. Meena Alexander, poet, novelist, and memoir writer. What is so special about Meena Alexander is that she is cracked by multiple migrations. From India to Sudan, then to the Western countries. And she writes about her experiences that my personality, my psyche is cracked by multiple migrations. And these multiple migrations made me. And in most of the writings, two special things I'll tell you about my research scholars about Meena Alexander, those who are desirous to work on that. One is that very often she refers to her two grandmothers. Not like Shahid Ali, because I'm giving you a different framework for this. कि आप एक से ही सबको मत लपेट दीजिएगा. Two grandmothers, House of Thousand Doors is a classic text, जरूर पढ़िएगा. And in that, the two grandmother, one is Kundu, and second is Mariamma. She refers to Kundu, who was the political activist and who was follower of Mahatma Gandhi. She says that my two grandmothers made me enormously. Especially one is Kundu. The fire, the feminist angle in me my fight with the muteness of women that I write about comes from Kundu, my grandmother, who was the follower of Mahatma Gandhi, who fought with the British Empire. So मैं जुझारू हूँ, मैं जूझती हूँ, लड़ती हूँ because I know directly my grandmother. And the second mother, grandmother, Mariamma. Mariamma was very domestic, homebound, कभी घर से बाहर ही नहीं गई. And she used to take care of children, preparing idli, dosa, breakfast, other things, of husband and other liabilities. So he was domestic. And she says that the two grandmothers melt me in my personality, Kundu and Mariam. So if you ask me what is my feminism, so my feminism is made of a kind of Indian feminism. It's not purely British or the Western, feminism, because here is one angle, feminist of the Indian kind. Because the homebound grandmother Mariamma taught me much. Take care of family. Take care of your office. And whenever you encounter atrocities, then fight. Kundu. So in most of the writings, you will find that even if you read his novels or poetry, then you find that this is a unique kind of Indian example of Indian feminism, and how to mitigate the diasporic concerns. And whenever she finds that there is racism, she fights. She writes about it. And she uses bindi and tikuli and other things, sari, serious sari, because of the Mariamma kind of thing, and jeans also. Kundu. Another second thing which I say that that once she gave an interview in the Hindu, I read that she was asked a question that do you think that she also passed away, she is no more, death okay. Meena, do you think that diaspora is synonymous with exile? Or she says that, to my mind, in the Indian imagination, diaspora and exile, is very old, but it is not exile in terms of metaphor and experience. How? She says that in Indian tradition, chalai veti, ghumte raho. And many more saints of India from South India, they came to North India. This is the Ghumakari tradition. You will find in Sangama literature, you will find in Tamilian tradition, you will find in Indian tradition, in North Indian tradition. We keep on moving for what? For knowledge. We move, we migrate for knowledge, in search of knowledge. So diaspora is for the search of knowledge, not always for isolation, not always for alienation. It gives you knowledge. Look at another perspective of diaspora, that it is not alienation always, but alienation is a means of self. You explore yourself. Look at Buddhist monks, went to different parts of the world, but they did not write any autobiography. But you don't find this autobiography. They didn't write about their own personal experiences and feelings. This is Indian tradition. So she says that, look at Mirabai. In that interview, it says that Mirabai kept on moving in search of the elusive lover, Krishna. Kept on moving. So my movement, my coming to United States is like coming of Mirabai to USA. So another perspective you'll find in Meena Alexander's paper, that how she talks about. Now finally 5 minutes more and then the questions. Madam, is it okay? 5 minutes? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uma Parmeshwaran, Indo-Canadian, from Madras, studied in India and then went to Winnipeg, Canada. she's there and writing from Canadian, host country. What is so special about Bina Alexander is that she talks about the different kind of identities. So one diasporic identity is like Raja Rao, that wherever I go, I carry my India with me. The second perspective is that in-betweenness means not belonging to India nor to the host country. So this is called in-betweenness. One different kind of identity that comes, and this in-betweenness or the liminal zone, threshold zone, the threshold zone, liminal identity, in-betweenness identity is verbalized by Uma Parmeshwaran. There is another type of identity that find the Rushdie and his children. Rushdie talks about the multiple identities, not one identity. But because in the diaspora world where so much of migration as a transnationalist culture, so you don't think of that you are pure Indian. Purity, no purity. So purity refers to now has turned into fusion. So identities are very fluid. So don't talk in terms of purity or in-betweenness, but like this: you are something of this, you are something of that, you are something of that. You carry so many. You are loaded with varieties of identities. So now I'm just giving you example for this and then explain this. Uma Parmeshwaran uses a beautiful metaphor, because most of the writers, I tell you, diasporic writers are well versed in using beautiful diasporic metaphors. One used the continent and the other kind of metaphors. She uses a Trishanku metaphor. Trishanku. Diasporic communities are like Trishanku. Trishanku, you all know, Trishanku is a myth in mythology. Trishanku was sent to sky, to heaven, but the gods were very angry, and Vishwamitra actually was instrumental. Vishwamitra tried to send him to heaven, and gods forbade him to enter to heaven, because in the bodily form one cannot go to heaven. So he was suspended into the two world. In the sky, suspended in the sky. So neither of the earth nor of the heaven. This is the Trishanku metaphor that is, that is described, elaborated in the writings of Uma Parmeshwaran. So Trishanku is the text, and in Trishanku, it is the story of 3 generation migrants. It talks about the intergenerational conflict. Generational conflict, intergenerational conflict. There are 6 characters in Trishanku, the book. That is the Bhave family. So the first generation, Bhave and Savitri, his wife, and then Tara and her husband, the second generation, and the third generation is Dilip and Jayant. And you look at this, the conflict, that how, in diasporic setting, in the immigrant context, what is the role of assimilation? How are you assimilated? How are you integrated? Can you live like, other? Not possible. Or if it is possible, then what kind of identities do emerge there? Now, just I'm reading it for you. Bhave, the first generation, Savitri and her husband from Madras, they went to Canada to see their children. And there, they realized that it's very difficult for me to live in Canada. Why? Because nobody comes, no rangoli, no idli dosa, no aroma of masalas. Oh my God, my son, why did you bring me here? Just to show me your wealth, your prosperity, your car, your everything, your fridge, refrigerator. Look at the anguish of the first generation. The second generation who is working there. in a company, and this is the urgency, contingency. If you are working there, but they are very careful about the parents as well. And the third generation, Dilip and Jayant. And I'm reading, then I'll just tell you that how interesting this intergenerational conflict in diasporic situation is there. The grandparents, they consider something else. Their parents and the grandchildren, what are their way of assimilation? One party says that Canada will be my homeland. Mummy, main nahi jaunga. The grandparents say, let me go to Madras. I can't leave it here. Yahan ye nahi. But what about those, the daughter-in-law? वो क्या करे? नौकरी तो करना है, रहना है. This ambivalence, this Trishanku metaphor, यही Trishanku है. I'm going to read it for you. So what I said that the first generation is represented by Savitri and Sharad, the second by Chandar and Tara, and third by Dilip and Jayant. Now, this kind of this is the speech of Bhave. What kind of place you have brought me to, son? From Madras to Canada. The mother-in-law. What kind of place you have brought me to, son? Where the windows are always closed and the front door, it is always locked, and no rangoli designs on porch steps to say, please come in. How you can expect Lakshmi to come, my son? You think she will care to enter where the same air goes round and round? Look at the use of the lexicon, the words as well. But I am glad, son. I am really glad that you are settled good. Look at this. You are settled good, Indian English, and thought to bring me all the way to see lovely house and lovely car and everything. But my son, I cannot breathe this stale air. I cannot breathe this stale air with yesterday's cooking smells going round and round. Open the window, son, and let me go back. Open the window, son, and let me go back to sun and air and sweat and even flies and all. But not this, not this. Look at, now what is the predicament of that lady who is working there? Now, another, speech by Dilip, grandson. उनका क्या कहना है, वो क्या कहते हैं? Dilip is very happy in the Canadian setting. Amma, I like school. Amma, I like school. It is such fun. We play most of the time and sing songs in French. Sing songs in French, not in Indian songs and not the Tamil song. And sing songs in French. Amma, finger painting is such a fun. So many bright colors, get it free. And we can use all we want. Amma, if a crayon breaks, you can just throw it away and take a new one. माँ, अब ये देखो असली चीज यही आया. माँ, you think, could you change my name to Jim or David or something? When the snow comes, Ma, I'll get less brown, won't I? It would be nice to be white. More like everyone else, Dilip wants to be more white. Dilip says that, Ma, can you change my name from Dilip? Bada waisa naam hai, David bana do. He is very happy in the Canadian setting. Now look at the Trisanku metaphor. Daughter-in-law ka kya hai? Suspended between two words. She cannot leave the grandparents, the first generation Madrasis, and the son. This intergenerational conflict verbalized by so many. And now just I'm giving you the final remarks that what is the Indian contribution in diasporic writing? Rushdie, and I'll mention, see, when I was reading Uma Parmeshwar, then you found how Indian element is fused in the writing, that how repetition, how Rangoli and other Indian words, which is known as these days Chatanification of English. Indian diasporic writers have Chatanified English. And this Chatanification term is used by Rushdie, Midnight Children. He says that I have Chatanified English. Chatanification is the process that how do you decolonize English language, English pronunciation, English accent, and culture. So Chatani gives you a kind of flavor, a taste. Use of Punjabi language, use of Hindi language, use of Urdu in the in English language, and creating a kind of Chatanification. This is the way of writing of the Indian diasporic writers, that they bring myth, Trishanku metaphor, Trishanku myth, Indian myth. This is the way they relate with Indian myths. Because they are the writers of Indian diaspora. They are not the Indian of Chinese diaspora or Armenian diaspora. Because you can identify that what kind of myths they are using and what kind of language are they using. Are they using the standard British accent? No. Indian element is there. So this is Chatanification. And Aga Shahid Ali says that Mr. Rushdie, if you have Chatanified English, तो मैंने भी एक काम किया है. I have Biryanized English. Biryanization of English. Chatanification is the very stylistic kind of thing that you use, Indian cultural framework, phenomenon, and language into English. Biryanization is, Biryanization means it is kind of food. चटनी इज नॉट द मेन फूड. चटनी कभी मेन फूड नहीं थी. आप किसी को बुलाइए, आओ भाई आपको चटनी खाने के लिए बुलाता हूँ, नहीं, चटनी तो ऐसे सब्सिडियरी है, बट बिरयानी इज द मेन फूड. सो उसमें क्या होता है, बिकॉज इन बिरयानी यू विल फाइंड द थीम एंड स्टाइल बोथ. That is, Agha Shahid Ali and ghazal. That's why he said that he is using ghazal, the theme of ghazal and the style of ghazal. Experimented with English language. So this is one thing. Another thing which for my research scholar, I tell you that location, dislocation, and relocation. So what is the process of relocation? How do diasporic writers integrate or relocate in the host country? There are 3-4 major formula. There are 3-4 major theoretical framework. One is the salad bowl theory. Because like salad bowl, आप bowl में सलाद रखिए तो मतलब each has its own identity. कि भाई मैं मूली हूँ तो मैं गाजर हूँ, I am carrot or onion हूँ, प्याज हूँ. So they are there. They are living in one country but showing their own identity. So I am this. I am from Indian origin, come from UP. My religion is Hindu. Blah blah blah. So this salad bowl, the theory. Another theory is the melting pot theory. For research, I tell you the melting pot in assimilation, because the diaspora assimilates also in due course of time, and whether the assimilation is complete or partial. And if it is like a salad bowl kind of thing, then definitely you have assimilated with your own distinct identity जो चमकता रहता है, थोड़ा आपका रहेगा. In melting pot, you melt, you convert yourself in something else. So you become American, you become Canadian. Now you are not Indian, and you have established that. Let there be melting pot theory. And there is there is another what I told you. Is a mosaic theory. Like mosaic, you are visible there. Fourth was Chatanification, I said, and the Biryanization element, I said. So in the diasporic framework, whether you are in America or in Canada or Australia, what is the nature of your integration and assimilation? So your assimilation, if it is not complete, then you can retain your identity. Because in the corporate diaspora in the 21st century, you can have dual citizenship. You can be Indian, you can have so many identities. It's not that you just be complete European or complete American. So what my final version is that for my research scholars is that you should be very, very careful about when you read diaspora literature. So what is the experience of diaspora? What is this term? What is the Girmitia diaspora? How is Jewish diaspora different from Girmitia, and how Girmitia is different from the modern diasporic paradigms, and how this assimilation takes place, and what are the different contributions of writers, what are the different emerging identities of rigidity or purity or assimilation. Purity, I think, is now a huge question. And what are the visions of the transnationals? How are they contributing to Indian? And now the how nostalgia, the nature of nostalgia had changed, how memory had changed, how postmodernist style had changed. Now it's not that Indian origin people wear only sari and bindi. Now they are like this, but they are Hindustani, or they may reject Hindustan, or they may criticize Hindustan. They may talk about this. They may sell India because India is exotic country. And in the modern day style, in the modern day time, much of the identity of India, much of the vision of India is projected through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through media, through film, through food, through cartoons. So they are visible. There was a time, think of the Girmitias, jahan ki later bhi nahi aate the. What about the television, other things? So with the television and the internet, huge changes in the perspective and the writing. If you read, the writings of Ramanujan, and if you read the modern writers, Sujata Bhattacharya, you'll find complete change that how they are well versed. They are taking ideas from media, from Facebook, from other things. My scholars, research scholars, don't generalize things. Read a writer in the critical framework. So Stuart Hall, Bhabha, Said, and many more, theories you will find, Vijay Misra, Sudesh, and Sat Nandan. Read them, but don't try to generalize. Every segment of diaspora is different. When you read Nandan, and when you read, David Devidin, I think very promising, very effective writer, David Devidin of Caribbean. Now he's in England. So from India to Caribbean to England, that is his journey. And he says that we should write my dead parents are lie like a text. मुझे लिखना है उनके बारे में. But he says कि when my father passed away, I wanted to attend the funeral, but the connections were difficult. I couldn't catch the flight. My father passed away. Last rites नहीं दे पाए. And this is that this is what, because this is the postmodern world. We are in the movement. We are moving. Connections flight नहीं हुई, ज़्यादा बर्फ पड़ गया तो flight नहीं मिली. So we cannot give this. So आपको करता है जगजोता, but finally if you read this, then you find conditions. The diasporic conditions are entirely different. You can come, but you cannot come. You can't go. So various perspectives I tried to describe for these research scholars. That is open-ended. Now, with the permission of the chair, I can take a few questions from the research scholars. If you want.
Thank you so much, sir. I must say it was simply mesmerizing. We have some queries from the students. There are some questions in the chat box.
Okay.
The first question is, it is from Prakhar Medhavi.
Okay, Prakhar, welcome Prakhar.
Is the emergence of diasporic literature through the globe, especially in the third world countries, a counter-cultural phenomenon?
Yes, yes. Now, when you say third world, I say post-colonial world, definitely counters. And the writers of Indian origin or the third world country, they counter the hegemonic discourses of the West in many ways. Suppose if you talk, I only talked about the the Indian diaspora, but if you look at the Chinese diaspora, if you look at Armenian diaspora, if you look at Jewish diaspora, then they definitely counter. And countering episode takes place through what I said, the style, through theme, through chattenification and Virenization, deconstructing the ideas of melancholy and suffering and nostalgia. Because all these issues are in the postmodern, up to the modernist age. What happened? That at least search for past was there, search for root was there. But in the postmodern, they say, what is this past? It's an elusive past. So they counter the major narratives of modernist culture. And the postmodernist style definitely counters what is stable. And the narratives are small. It is not a kind of grand narrative. The demise, this is the demise of grand narrative. That is why you'll find the writers taking, small narratives of diaspora. A very small segment, a rape in India, now that becomes a kind of case there. So very small things that figures. Next question. Next.
Sir, you said the term diaspora as an umbrella term.
Nowadays,
Is it
yeah.
related with economic front or political front or in foreign policy front?
Yeah. See, in the contemporary usage, yes, I said that it is used with a small d, and it connotes to different concerns, maybe political, maybe religious, maybe economical. Yes, because nowadays the movement, the diasporic movement or expatriation or migration, even why should I say the diasporic? I say transnationals. So their purpose is to earn money. No doubt about it. They are very frank about this. But they are sending remittance to India as well for this welfare as well. And they say that now we live in a globalized world. Globalization has its own, thinking, its own process. After 1990, when we become the part of the globalization. So now world is with me. So we are the part of the world culture. So in that way, if we think of only India as if not changing, then that is problematic. And there are various problematics of diaspora as well. Discontent of diaspora, I'm not going to that. Some other time I'll talk about what are the major discontents of diaspora that hinting at. Okay, next.
Next question is, how does diaspora help in the overall sense of belonging and discrimination for those who left their native places in search of livelihood?
Now you have to understand that what is the origin of diaspora. Was it Girmetia part or the modernist one of the 1950s onwards, after the independence of India, 1947, after that, or after globalization? So you will find the sensibilities of the writers in this framework. The contemporary, transnational Indian diaspora, or what I say, corporate diaspora, pata nahi acha lagega ki nahi lagega. But I say that sometimes we find, I don't know whether I should say or not, many more things are fake as well. Fake in the sense that when they become sentimental or when they become nostalgic, then I think that, yeah, this is not the right way of dislocation. How are you expressing? So yes, that's there. So you have to consider the nature of their migration, and in that way, crisis may emerge or their assimilation may be there. Next.
The next question is, what is the role of conundrum of home in diasporic novel?
Role of what?
Conundrum of home.
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 Okay, okay. Home, you know, that's why I said, okay, how do you relate with the motherland?
Yeah.
Home, there are some who say that home is where my heart is. एक बड़ा बड़ा slogan है ना, home is where my heart is. Now home has turned into house and sojourn. So this is your stay. Home is not fixed. Home is not permanent in the contemporary transnational discourse, because sometimes they are in the US, then if they go to Australia, they just purchase a house and they come to Europe. So nowadays, the concept of home has become so fluid. But in the past, like in the Jewish diaspora, if you talk of home, then definitely the home for them was Israel. Their home for the Jewish sense. But in the contemporary, even in the Jewish contemporary context also, because they have got their homeland. And now homes are shifting. This attitude had changed. So one should not be very rigid about this, that home is where your heart is, or you become so nostalgic about it.
Yeah,
this is the postmodernist angle that is there in the contemporary diasporic scenario.
He also had a second part of this question. If they found at last their so-called fanciful home, then can you properly call it as home? Are they able to achieve their unconditional love and warmth of happiness?
Because, they are creating their own homes. It is the creator of imagination. If the actual home is not possible to touch, not then create a home. So this is what that happened in the Fijian context as well. What happened in the context of Fiji, Ganga, because someone dies, then Ganga water sprinkled on the body. उनको मुंह में पानी गंगा जल पिलाया जाता. So how come Ganga go there? So the local rivers were named as Ganga. So they created in a way, the diasporic people, they named a river as Ganga and considered it that Ma Ganga is mein. This is what I said, the fanciful creation that is possible, and this happens. That you will find in most of the writings, the fanciful, the postmodernist discourse, creation and recreation possible.
Ramin Goswami has put under quotes, it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. So he says from Bhagavad Gita. Can we relate this or ignore if we compare this with diasporic texts?
Again, I say Mr. Goswami is talking about the grand narrative. And in the early Indian diaspora, yes, the grand narrative was there. Because when I say Girmitia, when they migrated, they carried with them, Gita, Upanishad, Mahabharata, and Hanuman Chalisa and Quran. And they lived their life in the line of the principles laid down by these texts. But nowadays, I tell you that one cannot say that the destiny is based on the Indian wisdom as laid down in the scriptures or the texts. So we are living in a world of fusion. So we have created very fanciful world, and even destiny is under question mark. The destiny, karma, that say ki karam gati tare nahi kari. As I said that in Vidya context, they said that my banbas, my migration, my diaspora is eternal banbas. कहते हैं कि हमारे कर्म में लिखा है. And this karmic theory was very much there in the writings of the Girmitias. But nowadays, कहते कर्म क्या होता है? Destiny. I change my destiny. This is the postmodernist word and the framework of postmodernist. This is what the changes that have taken place. The route I just show the student the route, the passage, that how do we come from one phase to another phase and then to the contemporary phase, where that is the postmodernist diaspora They have different aspirations, different configurations, and this. So one should be very, very careful about these features.
We have another question, sir. How can we say that British Indian indentureship resulted in the development of a large Indian diaspora in most of the world?
Yes, that was the colonial project. And the Britishers, what happened, that one historical fact was that with the abolition of slavery, earlier, the slaves were taken to different parts of the world, slavery. But 1833, I think the slavery was abolished, Abraham Lincoln. And after that, the British masters thought that how can we make India a viable economic factor. So they thought that we cannot, bring slaves to the islands, but let us take Indian Girmitias, not as a slave, but as contract laborers to those world. And that is why, the Indians spread to different parts of the globe. Not in the first world, but in the, even not the third, but the islands. In most of the islands, you will find the spread of Indians as coolie, not as slave, but as coolie, but as Girmitia. And that gave spread to the formation of the first Indian diaspora. That was the design of the British colonial masters. But the earlier, form of migration, as I told you, in the Chol, Chalakya, and Pandey cases, we don't have that kind of diasporic relations as such, because assimilation has taken place and you don't have diaspora. So diasporas, as I said in the beginning, that diasporas do cease also. But still, the diaspora nature is also changing. Now the the transnationals are the grandchildren of Girmitias. They are not Girmitias. They are perfectly like any postmodernist migrant.
This is perhaps the last question, sir. With the departure of colonialism, many nations and national identity came into being who have no long history and cultural legacy. So how do people and writers of these nations face and handle the trauma of identity and cultural crisis?
Okay, that's I said, the identity formation, identity politics is a major concern in diaspora. That how to retain your identity, and in that context, I told that there are various framework of formation of identity. One is the eternal other. Another is melting pot, salad bowl theory, Biranization theory, and the chattanification kind of thing. This is the way we can mixing. It's kind of mixing and fusion. And we carry a lot of identities in a single individual. It don't say that I am an Indian and I'm not going to change. No. So I am Indian, I am Indo-American, Indo-American Christian. So various identities you can carry these days. But there was a time, when nostalgia was very, very paramount, and people talked about homeland in very emotional terms. And these days, now you will find very ironical texts are coming. You will find satirical. Not, they don't glorify India. They are very critical of India as well. But this is the the features of the postmodernist age. We live in a postmodern condition.
Thank you so much, sir. We don't have any more questions.
So I must thank the organizers for inviting me. And just had it been the face-to-face class, that would have been wonderful.
Yeah,
I miss.
Wonderful. No
I
doubt.
really miss the research scholars, their face, and
we could not manage it that way, sir, because
just I know this is the huge loss. Even in my classroom, also I tell you, online teaching is going on in PG and for the research scholars. I miss
eye contact has been lost now.
Eye contact and a kind of face-to-face interaction, heart interaction. That is usually missing Students are missing university, departmental teachers, environment, their boyfriends and girlfriends. They are missing. Everybody, is missing in these days in the time of the pandemic. So let
Some
us
other
hope that,
time, if we have that situation, sir, we would love you to be here in our department next
yeah.
time if there is
Thank you,
an
ma'am.
opportunity. Yeah. So now I invite Mr. Sanjay Kumar for the vote of thanks formally.
Thank you, ma'am. First, I would like to thank our HOD ma'am for taking extra ache even after completion of course. This discourse was arranged for PhD student. It shows her attachment, love for study and students, and her dedication to the profession. That is why we are here as a professor. Secondly, my thanks goes to our esteemed teacher, professors of our department who always spare their valuable time, particularly on Sunday. And I have plethora of thanks for Professor Maya Sankar Pandey sir. Professor Pandey sir has covered diaspora elaborately. In the same vein, I would like to tell that a diaspora is a scattered population whose origin lies in the separate geographical locale. The word diaspora was used to refer to the mass dispersion of population from its indigenous territories, especially the dispersion of Jews. The word was originally used to describe the forced displacement of certain people. Diaspora is now generally used to describe those who identify with the homeland but living outside their homeland. Pandey also said that literature of Indian diaspora constitute an important part of burgeoning field of Anglophone post-colonial literature. Some of the best-known authors of this archive includes Satendra Nandan, A.K. Ramanujan, V.S. Naipaul, Sahid Ali, Meena Alexander, Uma Parmeswar, Raja Rao, Salman Rushdie, Rohinton Misri, and many more to quote. The growing international visibility of these authors have gone hand in hand with the popularity of post-colonial criticism and theory in academia. Sir, you have clearly said that literature of Indian diaspora constitute a major study of literature and other culture texts of Indian diaspora. It is also an important contribution of Indian theory in general, examining both the old diaspora of the early capitalism following the abolition of slavery and the new diaspora linked to the movement of late capitalism. You also talked that a full understanding of Indian diaspora can only be achieved if attention is paid to the particular local of both the old and the new in the nation states. Sir, you elaborately said that quest for identity, nostalgia for the roots, sense of guilt have always been there in the psyche of the writer. The diasporic writers often turn to their homeland for various reasons, like perpetual search for his or her roots, or to immortalize his history, or to re-energize one's longing soul. Their writings also initiate the emergence of new culture, synthesis having its own unique identity and could reflect both, not only the homeland but also the host land. The psychology of writer of Indian diaspora is predominantly saturated with the element of nostalgia, as they seek to discover themselves in the ambience of new culture. They write in the backdrop of culture trait of their land, and at the same time endeavor to fit themselves into the cultural space of host land. And such literature acts as a bridge across the various culture, paving way for better understanding between different culture, region, country, as also render an impetus for globalization. Thanks for your important word. You have made justification and your special word for uh, that.
Realization.
Yes, sir. And last but not the least, a student of the course are able to thank for their active participation and their zeal for learning. And that is ultimate goal of teacher learning process. That is what we are here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your spare time,
Thank you
particularly
so
on
much.
Sunday, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us and sparing your valuable time. We would
सबको
really
सबको
love
मेरा
you to be
नमस्कार.
here in the department sometime.
मिलेंगे, जरूर मिलेंगे.
On next some any occasion if we have. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Sanjay ji,
And
we can end the meeting now.
yes, yes, ma'am. And I request all the participant panelists to switch on their video.
We can also request our guest speaker.
Pandey, sir, please switch on your video, sir. Rahmat, madam. Rahmat madam, please switch on your video. Okay, no problem.
I think she has left.
Can we end the meeting now, Sanjay ji?
Okay, ma'am. Now I'm switching on. Switching off the meeting.
Thank you.